All right, let's take a roll call. Everybody alive and well and ready to start a new week. Here's another episode of the best podcast around. Your favorite, my favorite, obviously. Here we go. Let's do it. Viking Coffee. Viking Coffee. Great stuff. I'm digging it. Evan Armstrong's brand. He has some of the best coffee I've ever had in my life. I'm not bullshitting you. It's all over the place. People are loving it. People are buying it weekly. I'm getting messages from people who are digging it. I'm not going to get into it. Whatever flavor you like, he's got them all. Go to VikingCoffeeCode.com, order some coffee, and I promise you, you're going to love it. Use the code VikingCoffee10 at checkout for 10% off. Cerberus Strength. Cerberus has sandbags back in stock. They are the best sandbags around, and if you were looking for sandbags during the quarantine, let me tell you, Cerberus has the best ones, and they are all back in stock, so give them a holler right now. While you're there, check out all their other stuff. They've got everything from T-shirts to belts to knee wraps and everything else. Great products, great people. Cerberus-strength.us. Use the code REFINEDSAVAGE10 at checkout. Warrior CBD. Nancy at Warrior CBD is the best. If you give her a holler on Instagram, she can answer all your CBD related questions. Let me tell you, CBD is not all created equal. There's a lot of garbage products out there, and Warrior CBD is my favorite. Reduce inflammation, help you sleep, get rid of those aches and pains. If you got a whacked out dog, that they can help you with that too. So give Nancy a holler, and if you already know what you want, head on over to warriorcbdofficial.com. Use the code WARRIOR20 off at checkout. Serious Steel, the best people, the best company. I love them. If you are outfitting any kind of gym, whether it's a home gym all the way up to a big commercial gym, Serious Steel has everything you could possibly want. Check out their stone sleeves for you people who are lifting stones and tearing up your arms and dealing with tacky. Very cool product. Their bands are also awesome too, but everything they have is awesome. Give them a holler, SeriousSteel.com. Use the code SAVAGE at checkout for 10% off. One of the things we have learned during the quarantine is that there can be a meat shortage. Stay Classy Meats doesn't have that problem. Stay Classy Meats will deliver high-quality meats directly to your home. They have their animals being raised on small batch farms in Montana. They are eating fresh Montana grasses, drinking from fresh Montana streams. The meat is amazing. I highly recommend it, and it's pretty much what I live on. So give them a holler, stayclassymeats.com. Find a box, check it out, and start small, work your way up. No one's saying you got to jump into the big boxes, but I promise you, you're going to like it. If you have any questions, give me a holler. I can help you out on what to order. So stayclassymeats.com. Use the code SAVAGE at checkout for 10% off. Finally today, the Breath Belt. I am seeing breath belts pop up all over my gym and all over the interwebs, and people are loving them. And I'm telling you, if you have psoas pain, low back pain, if you just need some extra support when you lift, if you need a belt that gives you a little support when you're doing athletic movements, the breath belt is the way to go. It is a fantastic problem. So give them a holler at thebreathbelt.com. Use the code SAVAGE20, all caps, SAVAGE20 at checkout. All right, today on the show, a return from one of my favorite guests, Ryan Walters. Ryan Walters, a former member of the 160th, better known as the Night Stalkers. It was a great podcast. We talked about a lot of really important issues, and it was done on Memorial Day, which is a day that has really special meaning for him because he's lost some buddies over the years, and he's had to deal with that. And Ryan is the kind of guy who, you all want your sons to grow up to be like. And I am proud to call him my buddy, and it was a great podcast, and I look forward to having him on the show again. So I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this podcast. We'll see you at the end, brothers and sisters. Bye.
Good quality?
Yeah, so I want to, first of all, Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be out here.
We were just talking about the quality of audio. I really was upset at our first podcast because the microphone system we had been struggling with for years to try to figure this out, and Apple has this thing where we didn't even realize it, but Apple likes their microphones better than everybody else's.
Okay.
So they kind of
naturally,
right. You kind of plug a different microphone into their system, and they were only letting one microphone go through. So a lot of the podcasts we did, it sounded like one person was really loud, and then I was in the background talking, or even worse case scenario, I was mic'd and the other person wasn't. So, so we just started going with Apple mic, and it's
if it works, it works.
Right? Yeah. So, well, happy Memorial Day.
Yeah, it's I think last time I was out here was snowing, so it's absolutely gorgeous day today. So
it's been like a year almost, hasn't it? Has it been that? No, it was
probably
fall.
It's I think it's January.
January,
about 6 months.
Yeah,
almost 6 months. So
yeah, I've totally lost track of time. How are you dealing with the quote unquote global pandemic?
I will tell you, it's been interesting. You know, when we first talked, I'd just gotten into a new position doing supply chain management, so still doing that, and you looking at the global supply chain it's still very fractured and a lot of issues. So working in a hospital, that hit us, and it hit us quickly, as things moved across the globe, out of China and then into Italy and through Europe, and then finally taking, manifesting here in the States. A lot of the vendors that we required, like PPE or swabs, they're from places like Italy.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to track down swabs to do, like nasal or throat cultures, so we can provide the clinical staff with the supplies they need to actually do the testing and get the samples so they can run it through the lab. Those companies are simply out because they couldn't handle the manufacturing capability to generate enough swabs, and so that was interesting. It's an interesting perspective to be in healthcare while this is going on, but also to be in medical supply chain management.
I never even thought about that. Yeah.
So just the whole entire like PPE, pop-up companies everywhere trying to sell stuff or sell for an inflated price. So all of a sudden, N95 masks or other surgical masks that we used to buy for less than $1 are now selling for over $2 or $3, sometimes $7 in some cases per mask. So you had companies that, unfortunately, companies popped up in response to this saying, hey, look, we've got PPE for sale, we'll sell it to you at a premium. Not saying that we went down those routes at all, but that's just kind of what the global marketplace looked like, is people did take advantage of the scenario and said, we're going to make money off of it. And, it's when you need PPE, some of these other companies out there, they're going to get you the PPE, but it's going to be at a cost. So thankfully, being a federal employee, we're very good at scrutinizing that stuff, and we're still catching up. The supply chain's still catching up. We're in pretty good shape at the hospital, but some things we still struggle to acquire because there's such a draw globally on them. So unique time to be in healthcare administration, but also in medical supply chain management.
I never even thought about the medical supply side.
Yeah, it's been pretty insane.
It was a big shocker to me, and I think to a lot of people when this first happened, that a lot of our medicines, a lot of our personal protection devices all came out of China too. And it's from a strategic point of view, and there have been no shots fired at China, but in a different landscape that we're in now, there's a weird Cold War going on there. And to think in the 80s we never would have done that with Russia. We never would have been buying things from them,
Yeah, it shows you just, how globalized the world is. And if you look at, like you mentioned the PPE being manufactured over there, so it's, you can say this virus originated in China and then worked its way around the globe, but now it's, we're relying on China to support the volume, the demand for procedure masks or other masks to help us prevent ourselves from getting it or prevent spreading it. So it's, I don't know, it's very fascinating. It's, it really shows you, in my opinion, that there is a lot of soft power there that you can influence through other means that are non-military. So you can say, well, we have
soft power.
Yeah, the soft power saying, we have all these other resources that you need, and you have to get them because nobody else has them. So if you need masks or N95 masks, the U.S. markets, the manufacturers couldn't keep up with the demand. You're talking about millions and millions and millions of masks that everybody needs. And for us, being an integrated healthcare system that covers the whole entire country, but also being in another network, the way the VA is kind of broken down, we're geographically aligned with Indiana and Michigan and all of Ohio, all these different healthcare, systems or centers rather, between Cleveland and Columbus and Ann Arbor, Indianapolis, we're integrated, so we're trying to work, collaboratively as a group within our veterans integrated system for our vision, trying to pull resources together and cross level and say, if one facility can procure some stuff, well, let's procure it so that we can distribute it to the other facilities too, because we couldn't keep up with demand. Especially Detroit had
got murdered.
Yeah, Detroit had the whole state of Michigan, for that matter, had a hard time, and Ohio's fared pretty well, I think, but. It's fascinating times.
We were talking about Detroit yesterday and why I can understand New York. It's a hub. Everyone's on top of each other.
Well, just like how dense it is. You go on Google Maps and look how just dense that whole area is, from Queens all the way to Manhattan. It's
But I didn't see that with Detroit, and I wasn't. It's kind of an anomaly why it popped up in this one place. And I was starting to think about like air quality from all the factories up there, and it's.
Well, you look at parts of China and India and even Italy. Some of the images obviously were doctored, but some of the true verified images you see, I think it was in parts of Asia, they can see the Himalayan mountains again from a distance because of the air quality, because people aren't driving cars. So
that was an amazing picture the other day.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, you look at, global emissions are down, and, obviously global warming is always a topic. So I don't know if this pandemic will help or hurt that, as manufacturing.
It shined a light on it, though.
Yeah, right? But if anything, you look at it, if we can react this way to a global healthcare crisis and work together, then why can't we do the same thing to control global emissions and work on that, improve air quality. So it's, my takeaway from this whole thing is, as frustrating as it's been, especially for my wife and daughter, all the kids that are in school, having to deal with that, kids transitioning out of school and having to go to that distance learning environment, which has definitely been a struggle. God bless the teachers, have a better appreciation for what they do every day. But, for me, it's at least, my opinion, it's made us realize that we don't need a lot of stuff to actually survive day to day. I mean, I think if anything, this has been somewhat of a reset button that shows you that, maybe certain things have been overextended, and we can actually survive off of the basics. And not so much that, but it's, I see kids outside more often. I see families riding bikes and taking walks. So, when I see that, I'm like, what, maybe that is some of the, there are positive things that do come out of, crisis.
That was my big takeaway from this, was all the things you just talked about. We were in Target this weekend, and we were going through looking at stuff, and Aaron's like, do you need anything? And I kept saying, no, I absolutely don't need anything right now.
Got food, water, shelter, I'm good.
And I started to look at this podcast, we do sponsors and it brings in money. And I started going to those sponsors and saying, don't send me more money. Send me product, because I'm going to buy that product anyhow. So that whole freezer is stocked, filled with Stay Classy meats. When I'm not, this is Brewed Awakening from Vermilion, Ohio, but when I'm not drinking that, I'm drinking Viking coffee, which gets sent to me. And if we can figure out ways to even, bypass regulations and all this, and just trade and just, here, I need this, you need this. I always mention the quote from Ron Swanson from Parks and Recs, which is one of my favorite shows, where he said,
he's got some epic one-liners.
He does. And he says, I have apples. You need apples. That's as simple as starting a business in this country should be.
It really is. And what's going to be interesting is to look, we live out on the east side. Like I said, we're all the way across Cleveland, 65 miles from here. So, but the same thing, we've got small businesses everywhere. And we've done as much as we can to support them, whether it's, doing a meal once or twice a week by doing, curbside pickup or carry out from some of the local shops and restaurants. And, went to the local bike shop, got to buy a nice, gently used bike. So it's.
Those are at a premium right now, too.
Oh, yeah. Bikes are at a premium. And, we're doing everything we can, as a family to support the local businesses. And, it's not easy. Walmart exists in certain parts of the country because that's the only option. So people have to go to those big retailers, and, those big retailers have done well. The Home Depots, all those other companies have done well. And they've provided, valuable resources that people have needed. But, when you don't have that option, those stores aren't near us, so you have to go local. And we will do everything we can. And I think it would be interesting to watch, how does this impact people's spending for the next 6 months? I know out there people have always kind of shopped local, and we certainly will, but it's going to be interesting to see, and unfortunately some of these companies or businesses have not survived and won't. There's prominent restaurants in New York, that have multi-million-dollar operational budgets that are not going to reopen because they learned in this process too that maybe their model didn't work. So it would be interesting to do more of a deep dive in and see, what are the long-term economic impacts to some of these, businesses or some of their models, because everybody's going to change their model. I think
we certainly did.
Now you can pick stuff, identify stuff online or pull the menu up online and then do your curbside. But like restaurants reopen in Chagrin, went and grabbed some to-go food or curbside pickup on Saturday, and there's people out, and it's you either see people behaving normally like they were before because it's nice out and people want to get outside, and I don't blame them for that.
Right.
That's what we want to do. We're social beings. Or you see, places where you've got 6-foot separation, and you've got every menu is getting sanitized, and the tables are getting wiped down. So we went to a tax store down in Streetsboro to buy some stuff from an upcoming horse show. They put the tables out in front of the cash registers, for 6-foot separation.
Do they? See, I was thinking in a tax store, they'd be like,
plexiglass. You think being around horses and livestock, you'd be pretty immune to stuff, but seeing some of those other businesses put up the shields, and every customer, they've got one person that walks by and sanitizes the table, and everything is away from the cashier. So it's how long does that last? We don't know. I mean, it's the new normal. Not to sound cliche, is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I'm very concerned, for my daughter and the kids. What does school look like going forward?
Yeah.
So she's done well, but it's being a fourth grader, she's responsible to that classroom environment.
Sure.
I think most kids do. So like my wife a couple weeks ago jumped on one of their like Google chats. They had the teacher, and she said it was heartbreaking because a lot of the kids are like, I want to go back to school. I want to be around my friends. Because there's a social dynamic to that too. But
might be the most important part of school at that age.
Yeah, I mean, these are very formative years. So it's going to be interesting to see so many different both positive and negative effects to this. So. But it's one of those things, man, we can only control so much.
Yep.
That's the nature of it. I try not to get too wrapped up into it because we really can't control most of it. We just have to figure out how we're going to manage it and live within this new system.
And I think there's going to be some good things that come of it. There's no reason why. I mean, shields, if you're a cashier and you've got a shield in front of you, why take that down when they, tell you it's okay? We've got prominently displayed, these are the buckets where you sanitize your equipment, and that's going to stay in effect even after this is done, because it's just good practice.
Well, you look too, I mean, it's, anything that's communal that people touch all day long, I mean, that's always going to be a vector. I mean, I knew guys going into gyms before that, always sanitize and clean their hands up, and they still got like MRSA or something.
Right.
Because the equipment wasn't, cleaned up.
Yep.
You touch it, and you touch your face or whatever, so it's, I think if anything, people have a hypersensitivity to that stuff now too. It's like, I'm gonna wash my hands now. So I always wash my hands coming out of the gym too, but now it's like
it's gonna make us less disgusting, hopefully.
I think that's probably the biggest takeaway is people will realize that, hey, we're gonna wash our hands and not touch our face and do all this other stuff we used to do. So
as I'm constantly resting my head on my hand.
Yeah, so it's and it's gonna be interesting. I mean, we're all in this together, and like I said, my biggest takeaway from this, personally, is that I think it's been a good time to just like realize what really matters.
Yeah.
And for me at least, coming from that environment a couple years ago, I mean, it was almost 2 years ago to the day that I retired from the Army. Still learning what a new normal for us looks like as a family, exclusive of COVID. But if anything, for me, the weekends feel longer because it's not like there's no rush to go do stuff now. It's like we can go do this, and we'll go ride bikes, or we'll go, fishing, or do stuff around the house. So it's so both good and bad to it, I think. And I think what I've noticed with other people too is I find people like reconnecting with their families, reconnecting with their kids, and that shows just the human character is a lot of perseverance and willingness to maybe I wouldn't say repair things, but you become aware of what really matters. Yeah, aware might be the best term. Yeah, you have better like spatial awareness of what really matters, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna put the phone down and go outside and actually play and spend time with my daughter and do stuff, but not without challenge. I mean, for kids, it's very confusing. So
Yeah.
very, very confusing times right now. They don't fully understand it, and I really do feel bad for the high school and college seniors right now that missed out on a lot of those experiences, I guess. That are synonymous with coming of age and graduating. So it's they'll never forget it. That's for sure.
I talked to my son. He's just finishing up his freshman year, and he was bummed that he didn't get a track season. And you think about it, but it could be a lot worse. You could be a senior who doesn't get to go to the state championships, and that's the goal you've worked out your whole life. And he's handling it really well, which is amazing. The resilience of these kids, where they shift on a dime way faster than we do. I think.
And I think we can learn a lot from them too. It's because we have a big high school out by us too, and it's you see all the hurdles and stuff up with synonymous track season, and it's everything's shuttered. No baseball, no softball. All the springtime sports that kids started training for. Late winter before all this really happened. So the other thing, the state of Ohio was pretty much locked down for almost 3 months. Early March up until recently. So it's
and as angry as I got at that because the gym was closed, there's places that are a lot worse. California is handling this very well, but they don't seem to be looking to come back anytime soon.
I saw my brother-in-law and sister-in-law live in Illinois, so I mean they were on a hard lockdown. So it wasn't bad here. It's but again, it's what does the future look like? It's the open-ended question.
I was doing, because I had nothing else better to do, and irritating Erin without stats and figures is not a good job, because she always wants data when you talk to her in a conversation. So I was looking at things, they're talking about a second wave, a second spike, and the last time we had a really hard pandemic that killed a lot of people was the Hong Kong flu in '68, which was an H1N1. There wasn't any lockdowns. 100,000 people dead in the United States, 1 million worldwide. 1968 was Woodstock. They didn't lock anything down. And then the last COVID epidemic we had was SARS. So Hong Kong flu was an H1N1. They did have a second wave. It was worse in Europe, less in the United States. With the last COVID outbreak or coronavirus outbreak was SARS, and they didn't have a second wave. So I'm hopeful that we won't see that second wave.
It's going to be interesting, because I know we've been looking at it. Does this kind of ebb and flow, waves and troughs throughout the summer, and does this run right into the traditional flu season?
Right.
Which is a concern. So already looking strategically, how does that look? Is there going to be a second wave now that things are open? So it's been interesting to live through this. I mean, we started surging pretty early, in March, doing things 6-7 days a week, trying to procure material and supplies, and a lot of stuff coming in, or a high volume of requests that we were trying to support, and sometimes it was fruitless, trying to find other vendors and stuff too. So it's going to be interesting to see if any of that manufacturing comes back in earnest, to the States to handle that volume, and what does the business model for those companies look like going forward? Now, knowing now that there might be 20 different vendors, but there might only be 3 or 4 manufacturers of certain products. So those are some of the bottlenecks that we ran into, is that there were a lot of vendors that sold certain products, but the products were only made by a couple manufacturers, and some of the manufacturers were in, like you said, like Italy, that makes, that has companies that make swabs, the kind of swabs you need to do that testing, viral testing. So it definitely identified some weaknesses in global supply chains, with respect to capacity, and that there's only certain vendors of certain products. So, but at the same time, it's also uncovered other like emergent opportunities too, like 3D printing. We can do that, and we have an improving capacity and capability of the hospital that's developing. So it's what I've noticed, people have become very resourceful, trying to come up and with creative solutions to difficult challenges, whether it's 3D printing face shields or some other materials or ventilators. So what I've enjoyed is seeing kind of those grassroots localized efforts of like kids that are STEM students in high school or college saying, hey, you know what, I'm not doing much with school right now, let's try to come up with creative solutions. And it's not for any monetary benefit, but it's altruistic stuff they want to do, you know. So I love to see that kind of stuff, and that makes me, you know, happy to be, you know, in a country that, you know, has that capacity and has a support system that encourages that. So it's good to see that, I think.
Well, there is something behind Reagan's American exceptionalism. I think that when problems arise like this in a free society, I think it's a lot easier to be creative and altruistic, and if you're not worrying about being thrown in a Gestapo or you know, the Gulag or something like that, you know, and then add in some financial gain to it, and you get some incredible inventions.
Well, that too. I mean, if it's a legitimate product, I mean, you could be that high school student out there that has an idea or has a solution to the problem, and if you through social media or through, you know, whatever different medium, you could get the right capital backing to actually get it off the ground and do it. So, but I mean, it's been great to see, you know, the grandmas in their kitchen sewing, you know,
Aaron's mother was doing it,
yeah, or those young kids coming up with solutions. I mean, even other parts of the world too, you know, seeing kids, you know, getting creative in, you know, different parts of Africa with hand washing stations, you know, that are foot actuated. So just very simple solutions. You know, sometimes we tend to go complex on the solution, but sometimes it's as simple as a bottle of soap and a bottle of water and some sticks and some string, and you've got yourself a little hands-free, you know, hand washing station.
Right.
So you know, it doesn't matter where it comes from. If the solution's creative, I will always embrace that. And it's been great to see some of the positives, and there's been many positives. But you know, even though this weekend is the traditional, you know, kind of kickoff to summer, it's a different vibe. It is. It's a different vibe. It's you know, definitely suppressed.
Yeah.
You know, I think people are just kind of like, what does the summer look like? And you know, not having barbecues or, you know, going to the lake or the beach or whatever. So it's definitely a different vibe. So,
you know, you mentioned that it's for a lot of people it's the kickoff to summer, but you know, we had talked about this having specific meaning for you, Memorial Day. And before we get into that, we have had Marine Recon, we've had Navy SEAL, we've had Green Berets on here, and to a man, it's different when you say, oh, I've got Ryan coming on, he was with the 160th. And they go, oh yeah, I have a lot of respect for those guys. That's not the way it works. Every time I've said it on a podcast, these guys' eyes light up. Like, holy shit, you know? So you can tell it's not just, oh yeah, I was a Navy SEAL, I have a lot of respect for those Marines, you know? There's a different vibe. So before we get into what Memorial Day means to you, I just wanted to let you know that, you know, universally, every special ops guy I've had on this show, his eyes light up when you mention that you've been on the show too, and they've all gone back and listened to your podcast. So, well,
I'll tell you, the feelings are mutual. I mean, you look at, you know, the different qualification courses, and not just domestically but globally too. I mean, I worked with some phenomenal foreign special ops forces too, but it was great to be in an environment where you got to work with like-minded people, you know, high performers that believe in the mission and would essentially rather die than quit. And you know, I absolutely respect the process that SEALs go through, and, you know, through SF selection and, you know, SAS selection, all those different, you know, foreign special ops forces that are out there. So it's I think I mentioned this in the last podcast too. It's one thing to say, you know, I'm going to volunteer and join the military, and, you know, if you fully realize why you joined and what the implications are, that contract you sign, then you begin to really understand and appreciate what it is that you stand for. But then it's, you know, you already raised your hand once and said, you know what, I'll support and defend the Constitution, you know, if necessary, with my life. But it's another thing to say, well, I'm going to go do really hard stuff too. I've already volunteered once to go into the military. Let's go do something that's even more dangerous and more complex. So, you know, in the 160th, we always referred to anybody in the back as our customer. Those were our customers. And I will tell you, it didn't matter if they were the, you know, highest tiered customer, Navy SEAL, Delta, whatever in the back, or if they were just a supporting force from the, you know, 82nd or the 101st, that didn't matter. We treated them the same. the same level of service and guaranteed the same results for them. So, for us, it didn't matter who was in the back, whether they were Lithuanian Special Forces or Norwegian or American or British, it didn't matter. We had the saying, sterile cockpit, sterile cabin. They were going to get the same support regardless and the same treatment. And, I have nothing but incredible respect for anybody that goes through, specialized training, because that's why we exist. We exist because they exist. The 160th, if you go back, was a result of the failed attempt to go, rescue hostages from Iran.
So that's a incredible story.
Yeah. So they took modified CH-53s at the time, and ended up in catastrophe in the middle of the desert trying to do a link up in the ground to refuel, and because of that, identified a gap in capability, and determined that, well, we need a specialized force that can go in at night with helicopters and provide world-class special operations support, not only for US but for global SOF, more or less, is what it's kind of morphed into. So, but yeah, that was a result of failure. The 160th came to be as a result of failure. So they took pilots from the 101st and trained them and got them comfortable in different tactics and flying low at night and using night vision as the primary means. And that's kind of how the 160th was born, was because of a failure and a gap in capability. And then they were formed to support Special Operations Forces. So, yeah, great organization. Like I said in the last podcast, we'll forever be loyal to that organization because that's where I spent most of my time. And unfortunately, sacrifice was a big part of that. A lot of guys did lose their life. So, and like I said, Memorial Day has a much different meaning for that reason.
Yeah.
To lose some really, really close friends or people you knew and spent a lot of time with from that community. It's not marginalizing the loss of any soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine, but when you're in a unit for a couple years with people, as compared to being with the same people for over a decade, it's the roots with those people are a lot deeper, I think, and that's just my opinion. I'm not, like I said, not marginalizing how anybody feels, but you have friends, but then you work with these people every day, but you're also, their families. You really do. You get to know them because you've been around them forever. So it's when you see the pain and suffering of a spouse or the kids that you've known for a really long time, it's that sticks with you in a little bit of a different way, I think. So
yeah. That was one of the reasons. Normally every Memorial Day we have a charity competition.
Yeah.
And we looked for charities to give the money to, and we ended up a few years ago giving it to the U.S. Navy SEAL Foundation. And I had to do some real research to find the right charity. And the reason why I picked them was it was started by the wives of the SEALs.
Yeah.
In support, all the money, I think it was like 96% of all donations go to the families who've lost SEALs. And that was really important to us. And, this year it bums me out. We don't have the competition. I'm still going to make a donation to them. But, it was nice to give them a check for $500 every year, or something like that. And,
yeah, I mean, we, Night Stalker Association, NSA, they pay scholarships out. I'm a lifetime member too. So, those special charities, will tell you firsthand, do make a difference. I know I'll probably share some of this here in a moment, but I was a casualty assistance officer for one of the crew chiefs of a fatal crash we had that killed 2 pilots, killed 3 of our crew chiefs, killed 2 Rangers and a pararescueman in 2007. Wow. So I had just come back from Afghanistan about a little over a month prior, and these guys went over. We were kind of in this process of where we had just enough crews to send 3 or 4 crews over, and then 3 or 4 crews came home. But that was, you're kind of on the replacement cycle with one another. So,
before you go on, what's a tour look like usually for you guys?
I mean, for us, shorter but more frequent. Okay. So, the norm for us was anywhere from 30 days to 90 days. It really depended. So, I mean, I had a deployment that was over 100 days, but I've had some as short as 10 or 12 days, depending on what was going on. But that was kind of the norm, and that that was kind of a selling point, the shorter frequent tours, but it was constant. So from 2006, from 2006 to 2014, it was 2 or 3 times minimum per year. So you're going over for 30 or 60, about 45 was kind of I would say the median time. So you're over for 45, and then you come home, and it wasn't uncommon to come home for a couple of days and then be on a temporary duty trip to like Virginia Beach or somewhere for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So even though you're deploying less, for shorter periods of time, it's you deploy, surge, come back, and you're training,
right?
traveling,
Yeah.
then you're deploying again. So you're on this cyclic process of just, combat stateside. But while you're stateside, you're, gone a lot too. So, yeah, if you were, caught up in that, you were probably averaging, I would say, at least 200 days out of the year gone from, not at your house, head in your pillow. So it's that wears you down.
I was gonna say that's not not conducive to a long career, right?
No, it definitely wears you out, and with the family dynamic, it's you find yourself trying to insert yourself and integrate with your family, but then you're pulled away from that, and you're just kind of trapped in this process of trying to reinsert, trying to establish a norm.
Yeah.
Really, it's for me, my wife, and my daughter, we're trying to maintain something normal, and really, I struggled with adapting to what my wife had, and I'm still learning how to do that, and I'm still learning from her. So it's
because you're the abnormality. You're coming back.
I'm the one that's coming and going.
Right.
She's at home with our daughter. Trying to manage that. Stuff just the way it was. I remember. It was a decade ago. We went to West Africa for like 6 weeks, and like 2 days after I left, there was a massive like flooding of Nashville, and there was flooding in the neighborhood, and that's like how the like the light pole outside got hit by lightning. So all this stuff happened in the houses in the neighborhood, and she had to have an electrician come in and had to have stuff fixed. So it was always like whenever I was deployed, stuff happened.
Yeah.
That she had to manage, whether it was the HVAC went out or a new refrigerator or something. That's it seemed to be just by chance that the biggest inconveniences like that for her would happen when I was gone and I wasn't there, and I couldn't help her out. And
it helps to marry someone who's squared away, though.
Yeah,
right?
she's a good Italian girl, so
I
married up, so I'm good. She's got great family, and the strongest person I know is my wife, hands down. So I probably should tell her more of that, and she'll hear this. But she is one of the strongest people I've ever met, and probably the only reason I'm sitting here in front of you right now, honestly.
No, I get it. I mean, you've met Erin. I feel the same way, and we don't. That's. I bought her a card the other day just because, you realize you don't say that stuff, especially when she's squared away.
Oh yeah.
Because they're not constantly telling you they need that.
Oh yeah.
And so that makes it a little bit more difficult. That you need to realize that on your own.
Yeah. And I said always learning. So that was probably the biggest challenge, coming from that community is. And I know the other tiers, they would do 3 or 4 months, maybe once every 18 months, but still, they're in this training cycle too. So as a community in special operations, it's not an easy lifestyle. It's an exciting lifestyle. You get to do some phenomenal stuff, incredible missions,
You're making history.
But you're with fascinating people. I mean, you're just with high performers. So those are the benefits, but there are significant consequences to staying in that lifestyle. And for me, I really enjoyed it. Worked with incredible people. People that are still really, really good friends. And like I said, there's folks out there doing it still right now. We'll always hold those people in the highest regard, and we'll always have the highest degree of admiration and respect for them and for the unit and for the mission. But there are consequences to that lifestyle that can really break some people. Whether it's, finding comfort in, substance abuse. I mean, that's kind of that happens across the military. We know that the people have relied, had developed dependencies in certain things. But the good thing I've noticed about that community, and like I said, I'm 2 years removed now, is that the special operations community, understanding that people are its most important resource, began to invest heavily in, how do we preserve resiliency? And that's where it got okay for people to start talking about what they've been through, to tell stories, to deal with, PTSD. So that stigma has been dissolving over time, where it's like, okay, well, you think about what people go through, and they've been through these selections and multiple, and sometimes 15 or 20 combat deployments. You have to be able to open up and talk about that stuff and heal, and realize what you've been through. So I think the community has done a much better job of enabling and embracing and allowing guys and gals that are in that community to open up more and talk about their experiences, understanding that it's okay to do it. I still talk to guys, here and there that get concerned about, well, I'm not going to, when I retire, talk about PTSD or bring it up because it might affect future employment. It's like, no, it's not. No.
Well, so
that's your health information. You need to open up, because if you keep that bottled up inside, that's gonna blow up at some point. You don't want that to happen to you. So you have to tell those, talk about those experiences and open up a little bit. And something that I struggled with for a long time too, but was able to finally open up to my wife and really close friends. And I have found that when I talk about working through and living through some of those experiences, that it's actually very therapeutic. We're finding other outlets for it, whether it's artwork or other things. It's you can't change what has happened, but you have to be comfortable telling those stories and how it impacted you. Significant traumatic events impact people differently, but everybody has a different experience. But you have to create an environment that allows people to talk about that within reason.
It's important for your mental health coming out of the service, because there's a lot of transitional problems and there's you've seen things that everybody else at Walmart hasn't seen.
Yeah.
I think it's also good that people are talking about missions and people are talking about the things they did. I am a huge fan of military history from battles BC all the way up to the present. Try to get a guy from the Vietnam era to talk is very difficult.
Okay.
Now, that's a whole different, because they came home and they were looked at as pariahs by a lot of people. But nowadays, you have guys like yourself. You have guys like Jocko and these guys who talk about what they did. Tim Kennedy. And it's important that we hear those stories, and it's important that we know that there are men of valor out there taking part in history and doing the right thing and disposing of the bad guys, so you can sleep warmly at night.
My this is entirely my opinion. I definitely agree that storytelling is good, but I would just encourage folks not to monetize it.
Sure.
That's where it becomes a problem. I think when you're using it to your stories to self-promote or to monetize it, I do have an issue with that, because there are some ethos of the community and being a quiet professional. You can tell those stories, but it's to share the story for those right reasons, like you said, to share bits and pieces of history. But as soon as you monetize it, the story now becomes who your personality and everything that you are, and it's no longer your true self. It's entirely for self-promotion or gain. Then that is kind of a trap that some people do fall into. So I think there's a correct way to tell those stories without compromising the intricacies of a mission or classified stuff, or really just understand that there's folks out there that may have been on those missions that are still serving. You don't want to compromise the work that they're doing, what they've been through. So it's always my word of caution, is that tell your stories, but always be aware of some of the agreements that you made, because some of that stuff has to stay protected.
Sure.
And anytime you monetize it, to me that becomes problematic, because I think that takes over who you are and what you really stand for. So, I agree. Storytelling, being able to connect with other veterans and share some experiences, or you're realizing, hey, we were at the same place at the same time. That's good stuff. That's camaraderie. That to me is therapeutic. That sitting down with family and kind of going through some more of the intricacies within reason has definitely helped me out. A lot of people know what I did, but don't know the details of what I did, and I'm okay with that.
It's always
they don't fully realize it, and I'm okay with that, because that's from the past, and that stuff needs to stay that way for a reason, to protect it. Memorial Day for me, it's a holiday, but it's when you have close friends that you worked with, or folks that raised you that did pay that ultimate sacrifice. It's Memorial Day is just a holiday that you also remember them on, a holiday that gives national reflection, for the sacrifice they went through. But like most veterans that lost close friends or colleagues, brothers and sisters in arms, Memorial Day is kind of a daily thing, or you see certain things that trigger it. So, and I still talk to the family of the crew chief, Brandon Gordon, that I took care of, and I haven't physically seen them in over a decade, but I still text them, a couple times, 3-4 times a month, to check on them, and to have that relationship with another family that lost a son. To me, that is an incredible relationship that I have with them, and I'm fortunate and grateful and blessed that they still want to talk to me, even though we met because of a tragic event that took the life of their son.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to tell that story?
Well, yeah, some details in that. The unique thing about, and I can't speak for other organizations, but I know that we did this and continue to do it, but in the special operations community, generally when there's a fatality, there's not generally, when there is a fatality, a casualty assistance officer is assigned to the family of the soldier, sailor, airman, or marine that was killed, to help them through the process of getting their remains back and all the other financial issues and recovery remains and personal effects and stuff like that. So in special operations, at least in 160, I know it's the case for all the other units that I've ever worked with, is that's handled internally. So let's say a Marine from Camp Lejeune, was killed in combat, and let's say they're from, I don't know, like South Dakota. Well, chances are somebody regionally will assign a casualty assistance officer to that family that's from that region, but doesn't necessarily know that Marine.
Right.
The way we did it was we assigned people that knew or served with that person. So, in 2007, I mentioned earlier, we lost a crew. Took 2 pilots from our company, 3 crew chiefs, 2 rangers, and a pararescue man. Everybody else survived it, in different degrees of injury. But I still remember getting called into work on a Sunday in February of 2007, and I'm like, this can't be good. So go to work, go into our operations officers, into his office, and they've got a sheet covered up, and I sit down and I just lift it up and I see a list of names, and I'm like, I had to walk outside. I'm like, these are dudes I know from my company. And it didn't really sink in until I was outside, and another buddy of mine who was also called in to be a casualty assistance officer, it fully hit us, and we were devastated, absolutely devastated. So went back home after, I got some details, went back home, grabbed my uniforms, and a few hours later, after a crash course and some training, and mind you, this is before the Army really got invested in the whole casualty assistance program, which is a good thing, because they have a formal program of instruction now that they do, and I would imagine the other services do too. But I was on my way to Naples, Florida that night to meet a family I'd never met.
And the training was just basically how to tell them, how to deal with them.
Yeah, it wasn't even that. I mean, I wasn't a part of the notification team. They had already gone down and notified the family, but I was on my way to meet the family, and Brandon Gordon was the only one that wasn't in the area, so everybody else he was a single soldier, young guy in his 20s, and I'd actually flown him a couple times this summer before, because he and one of the pilots that was killed in this crash had survived a shoot down the summer before. So they walked away after getting shot down, and so I was on my way to Naples via Fort Myer, and met the family for the first time on a Sunday night after a crash course and some training, and it was very much on-the-job training, trying to figure out how to do this. So basically spent the next 90 days going back and forth from Fort Campbell to Naples, Florida, as he was the only one outside of the area, so I had to do everything from setting up the arrival, the remains in Naples and making sure that was handled, to funeral arrangements for the family. And this is a family, I met for the first time, having realized they lost their son. And I will tell you, when people ask me what was the most difficult thing you did, and it wasn't the missions, but that was early on in my career in the 160th. I've only been there not even a year in the company flying, so um, that was the most difficult. Yeah, it continues to be the most rewarding experience, just to go take care of that family.
Yeah.
And the parents live in Daytona Beach right now. But I will tell you, that family has been through some incredible stuff as a family, and they inspire me every single day with their resilience as a family. And I'm just, very grateful that they still communicate with us, because they've essentially become, extended family of us. Because I met them, like I said, during a tremendous tragedy. So, for me, I lost friends in that crash, but I was so focused on taking care of them that took away from my own processing and grieving.
I can imagine, yeah.
At the time, because the one pilot I had served in previously, when I was a medevac pilot, he and I were deployed together in Iraq in 2003. He was a former first group guy too. So I'd worked with him before, so I'd known him from 2003. So I knew him for about 4.5 years. And the other guy, the other pilot, I flew a lot with as a brand new aviator in the 160th. So I attribute a lot of my, upbringing as a new pilot in the 160th to this guy, really, really great guy. And then the crew chiefs, I knew them, obviously we're in the same company, saw those guys every single day. So, to try to take care of a family while also trying to grieve is an interesting spot to be in. But I was so focused on, taking care of them that it provided for a distraction away from that, but I was able to focus on them and take care of their son.
It was a mission.
Yeah, that was the mission.
Yeah.
So you look at some of the uniquenesses, unique things that special operations do. That one is often probably not told, is that we handle it internally, so we take care of our own if that happens. And for that family, that has been and will always be their constant connection to the unit.
It's a monumental responsibility.
Oh yeah. So I was able to go to the one guy's funeral in Arlington. Was able to squeeze that in between taking care of his family. But I will tell you, what was fascinating was, and it doesn't matter what the amount was, but the father, I think, took most of his benefits the family received and reinvested them back into the Night Stalker Association.
Oh.
Yeah. So you talk about an incredible person. When I think of this family, and they inspire me every single day. So I did call upon those feelings. Anytime I thought that I was stressed or frustrated, or even to this day, you look at what that family's been through, and I draw inspiration from their strength. I really do. What they've been through, and they're still so positive in their outlook. And I'm not going to share the other details of what that family's been through, but this just scratches the surface. What they've been through as a family is incredible, and they're still the most positive people I've ever met. So, that's Memorial Day is a little bit of a different meaning for me.
Yeah.
For those reasons, and like I said, I think of those guys every single day, and the families, and it's that was the most difficult, most rewarding thing that I was ever part of, and I'm glad that I'm still able to talk to that family.
Isn't it something when we talk about, you've been in extremely stressful situations, and you think about, now I'm sure you have stressful situations in your work life, and it's always like, well, you've got stress, but think about these guys doing this job that have this kind. You don't think of it that way. It's just you're in the moment stress. But if you can pull on, a guy who's gone through the stuff that you've gone through, who do you pull on for inspiration for that? And if that family seems to be your touchstone for that.
Yeah, that, and then but my wife went through this too with me, so I wasn't alone in this process too. And these are people that she knew, and it's we went through it as a family, because I'm down there doing that, taking care of this family. We just had lost a whole entire crew. Our company was invested in taking care of those families. These are guys that left behind wives and kids, so it was just a nightmare. But that was, to me, the most honorable thing, to be chosen to go take care of them, and to be able to speak to them now 13 years later, and to have just an awesome relationship with them. I mean, that's the friendship and the love that we have for them as and one another, family to family, is incredible. So the other brother came to my retirement, and he himself has been through some massive challenges in his own life, but I love him like I love my own brother. So
They've
it's
you guys have kind of had this bond now that'll never be broken.
So it's incredible loss, brought our families together, and like I said, every February 18th, I do a toast to them because that was the night they were killed. And but to me, every day in a way is Memorial Day, because I think about you might see it was kind of funny. I think it was like 2 months ago. We're watching TV at home, and you know how they show on Wednesdays the lottery numbers, like the pick three.
Sure.
And I see this all the time. It's maybe I'm just hyper aware of it, but in my community, everything's referenced off of the last 3 digits of the tail number. So this helicopter was 472. 471 was another one that crashed in the Philippines in 2002. So it's kind of weird, the number sequencing here. But the pick 3 a couple months ago, we're just sitting. This is like a Wednesday night a few months ago. It's 472 in that order. I show my wife, I'm like, look at that. And she's like, so you just see these little reminders that pop up, and it's kind of funny when you think about it. But those are incredible guys, and we were able to continue on after that happened and rebuild the company. But you look at other significant events too, like extortion. Extortion shoot down that happened.
That wasn't a 160th.
No, it wasn't a 160th, but that wiped out a whole entire troop of special operators. And one of the guys that I got to work with, and they kind of reconstituted that troop. I think he departed a couple days before because his wife was having a baby. So he left, and 2 days later, his whole entire troop was killed.
Wow.
So when I think about things that maybe frustrate me or difficult or complex, I think about guys like him too. This team leader, I don't know where he's at in his career now. He might be retired, but was a great team leader that I got to work with those SEALs. How do you wrap your head around that? You go home and leave your team there because your wife's having a baby, and then you lose everybody that you were raised with, everybody that you went onto the target with. These bonds, these relationships you have with guys you've been serving with for years and years and years. I know he was a long time serving team leader. How do you recover from that?
Guilt from that, I would imagine.
How do you recover from that? And I will tell you, he was one of the nicest, just most laid back operators I've ever worked with, and would often when we were deployed together, just go shoot the breeze with him. Just a super awesome guy, and it's
Extortion 17 was for people who don't, and I may not have this right either, was that the first helicopter that was looking for Michael Murphy's team? Is that how that worked out?
Different period of time. Okay. This is 2011, up kind of central Afghanistan, but this was a...
It was a rescue op?
Well, it was a mixture of National Guard and Reserve crews, and it was a conventional CH-47.
Okay.
But, they were basically flying up a valley to go do a mission. They took the SEALs out and just got shot down by an RPG and killed everybody. So I was actually just south of there in another mission that night, and had to leave my guys on my mission on their target, go back to where I was at, pick up more resources, and then go up there and stand by. We didn't end up doing anything. Our sister battalion crews from another location flexed to that area and helped clean that mess up. But that was just another nightmare too. So
there was another with the Michael Murphy incident. There was a
that was 2005. So that was SEALs, and that was 3rd Battalion 160th lost a crew.
So that was 160th.
Well, so Michael Murphy, that whole Operation Red Wings.
That's what I'm. That's what I'm confusing.
That was another nightmare too.
Yeah.
So. You just look at it. I came into the 160th. I think I just shoved the Fort Campbell, and that happened when 146 was the tail number of that Chinook that was shot down from 3rd Battalion. And then there was a little bird crash. So it's Special Operations community per capita has paid immensely. Since 9/11.
Yeah.
When you compare it to Vietnam, we're looking at 58,000 total killed in Vietnam, obviously, the casualties since 9/11 are, far lower in number, but, you look at, special operations being out there. I mean, you look over the last couple of years, and a significant, amount of the casualties in the last few years have all been special operations forces because they're still out there, they're doing stuff.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of the business. But, for me, that was losing that crew was for me, was the first, like, in your face loss, having to deal with it. I lost some another friend that I grew up with in Ranger Regiment, that I found out he was killed. The fall of 2003, Jay Blessing had a camp named after him in Afghanistan. That was a very close personal friend that I grew up with when I was enlisted, so that was impactful too. And think about him all the time. And got a chance to serve with an extended family member of his name who was in the 160th, so his legacy continued on too. But for us, in the 160th, after that crash happened, most of the loss that we experienced was with our customers. Having to go in and, these are guys that, a couple hours before you were face to face like you and I are planning the mission that night, and then you're flying out because one of them was killed. That guy that was sitting across from you a few hours prior is now dead, and you're there to pick them up. And in some cases they're they were still alive but expectant. And the beautiful thing about what we did in the 160th, and I would argue is probably our trademark, if we could trademark anything, was that our contingency planning, our guarantee that when stuff went south, quickly, and we were adaptable and agile enough and proactive enough to respond, to always provide that injured assaulter, that customer, with a chance.
That's
and that was one thing that we did, probably I would argue better than anybody else, is we were always prepared to react to a contingency like that. If there was somebody that was shot or injured, or somebody that was needed us right away, we did everything conceivably possible to at least give them a chance.
Yeah.
And the customer knew that, and they knew that if they called us, we would be there. It didn't matter what was going on the mission. They could have been pinned down, getting shot to hell. We were still going to come in and get them.
Yeah, and I think that's when you look at special operations and how it's evolved over the years in all different special operations. I think that's the professionalism that goes along with it, is that they have a plan B, and there's not a, oh shit, now what do we do? There's always another plan.
You always come up with a solid base plan, and then you plan your contingencies. And for us, contingency planning meant that we could guarantee that we could support those contingencies. So we would always worst case it. We always we were agile. We could think on the fly and adapt, and that was something that I invested a lot of time in with my guys and my crews, was to teach them how to do that critical thinking on the fly. Okay, and the plan just changed massively. What do you do?
Well, look at the Obama raid, the Osama bin Laden raid. There's no Obama raid.
He was president.
He was president at the time. Major problem when the helicopter goes down in the courtyard. And stuff has to happen.
Things change. I mean, that's happened on a lot of different missions where you take your customers in, and all of a sudden things change. The enemy has a vote. Every single time they have a vote, and the environment has a vote. The terrain has a vote. It's not just the threats were never just bad guys with guns. They were always, weather, terrain, that affects performance of the helicopter. So at any time, things could change. The weather could change. If you're going to land on one heading, the wind could be 180 degrees out in the tailwind. Now you have to do that audible on the go and change the plan and still deliver the same results.
Right.
So like I said, that critical thinking, that agility was something that I really enjoyed. And on top of that, being entrusted to do that and having the support that you needed to make that call on the radio saying, hey, we're going to flip the script 180, we got to do this now, and still deliver the same results, and the customer in the back saying, hey, we got it, I'm going to land this way, you guys do this now when you get off the helicopter. Yeah, I got it, man, we're good. So having that rapport with the guys in the back, the customers, and them knowing that once we put them in, we could guarantee that we could get them out, or we were going to do everything we could to get them out and get them out of a dicey situation. That was stuff I enjoyed, and I enjoyed being entrusted in doing that, and I enjoyed working with those customers and having that mutual respect for one another that, hey, if we put you guys in, we're going to get you out. If the shit hits the fan, we're going to come get you out too.
Yeah.
If you guys are pinned down and you guys are screaming for help, we're going to come in. I don't care. We're going to work the resources. We're going to come in and get you guys out.
Right.
Or we're going to pick up the wounded or the dead. It doesn't matter. We're going to do that. And I know I will never work with a team again that is that focused on it, where they knew that if we were going to do that, everybody in the back of the helicopter, all the crew chiefs and everything were invested in that. They knew, okay, we're going in for this reason. And we never had to explain it to them because they knew that was the mission.
Right.
And they knew that those guys on the ground needed our support. So it's fascinating. And to me now it almost feels like a lifetime ago that that's in the community environment that I came from. But
makes it hard to deal with other communities sometimes.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
you look at being in a hospital and dealing with COVID. This is new for healthcare systems. They've never had to deal with pandemics like this, so people get stressed out. And there's a high demand on the system. There's a lot of unknown variables.
Yeah.
The unknown. When you look at the unknown, that does terrify people because they don't. You like to control things. Especially with healthcare, you like to control things. So when you're going down an uncharted path, there's a lot of fear there. So I found myself trying to apply my old mentality to my new career, and it doesn't necessarily work all the time. So,
yeah.
Because people are emotional, they're emotionally driven. So, my philosophy was, you need to remove emotion from it and do it, and you can still have empathy in the process, while dealing with it. But sometimes you have to remove the emotion. We have to do the mission. We have to get this done because of this. Because we need these results. But you can still have empathy and compassion in that process, but sometimes things have to be a little black and white. You just have to get the job done.
Yeah.
The area in the gray, the ambiguous area, you'll have to navigate that and figure it out. So, but
do you have difficulty dealing with quote unquote normal humans? Just from my background. In athletics, one of the biggest problems I've always had is just going to parties and dealing with guys who don't understand why I'm spending 2 hours a day training, or that at the time why I was gone every weekend to compete in some, because they don't live those same lives and they don't understand the discipline. And it was always very difficult for me, and still to this day, these idiots that just walked in the back of our gym are people who I deal with very well.
Yeah.
Mike Dermaya was a world-class tough mudder guy. Isaac was a Marine recon sniper, and Eric is a fitness fanatic, and they get it. They understand, the discipline and the training and everything. Do you have issues sometimes when you go out and have to deal with people who aren't used to that kind of level of discipline and focus?
No, because I don't know. I kind of think that I was in that kind of in-between group generationally. I was raised by guys that were much older than me. Guys that survived Robert's Ridge. That whole thing. So guys that had served in Desert Storm, and guys that were served in Somalia. So I was in between those guys and my younger guys who, vaguely remember seeing what happened in Somalia on TV. So, for me, I think that my generation and the younger generation are probably a little more in touch and a little bit better connected to society in general, and realize that you have to have maybe realistic expectations. So for me,
that's always been my problem. Is I'm unrealistic.
Is not lowering expectations. You never lower your expectations. You just modify them. I guess is what I'm getting at. So when I deal with somebody, I don't. I try to find a way to connect with them. They don't need to connect. I don't. They don't really necessarily need to know my background or be concerned about that. And that's not something that I go out and broadcast anyway.
Sure.
More often than not, I talk to a lot of people and it's never even brought up.
You brought the way I had to dig to find out. You did that seminar and Aaron said, "Oh, this guy's a helicopter pilot," and I was like, "Just ask him who he's with."
But my point being is that when I look at other people and other vocations, I draw parallels to the dedication and drive that got me to where I was in the 160th. So if there's a surgeon or let's say a world-class musician or somebody that's a professional ballerina, these complex vocations or practices, they got there the same way that I got to where I was in the 160th, through the same framework, through dedication, through drive, through focus. So if anything, I draw parallels. I don't try to create any distance between myself and anybody.
But those people are very similar. Like
they are. The mentality is the same.
Yeah.
If you look at the focus that a surgeon has, the focus that a world-class musician has, they got there the same way that you and I got to where we got, through constant repetition, through dedication, through commitment.
I find myself easier to I get along with those people, and I'm fascinated by those people because on our Instagram page is the Musashi quote where it's once you see the way broadly, you begin to see the way in everything. So you're right, that high level ballerina has that same brain as you do, that they've had to drive and do the reps and have that discipline in order to wake up early and go to sleep.
Sacrifice their body. They sacrifice something to get there. So it's I think you have to find that path that connects you more instead of separates you more, I guess, because being in the military is great. We've talked before. But that's that was a significant portion of a lot of people's lives, but that's not the only thing that should define you. Like my daughter's 10, and she's as told my wife and I, she wants to ride horses in the Olympics. And I'm like, that's great. I'm happy that you have that drive and that passion. And for her, it's just teaching her that you have to stay focused and committed to doing it. You have to listen to your trainer, and you have to study outside of the barn, outside of your lessons. You have to watch videos and do this and do that, and she does that. Case in point, not even 2 weeks ago, she's got a big scar on her back now because my wife was at a lesson, and she did her jump on her horse. She's an aspiring hunter jumper, and she's done really well. So she comes off the jump. The horse has a vote.
Sure.
Horse over jumps, lands, decides I'm going to go really fast, comes around the turn to change direction, and she came out of the saddle and she got slammed. It sounded like somebody hockey style body checked her into wood panels. This is a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And my wife is filming this, and you don't see the part where she comes off, but you just hear it. So you just hear this bam into the wall, and you hear her go, ah! My wife stops filming, and then 5 minutes later, my wife's like, she got back on.
That's awesome.
She's got this big 1 foot by 6 inch patch of skin missing on her back.
Jeez.
And you can tell in the next series of videos, she's pissed off, but she got body checked into wooden wall.
Right.
Hit the dirt. You fell off the top of a horse, but she picked herself up, wiped the snot off her nose, and got back in the saddle and went out and did it again and did it well. Well, her shirt's stuck to her back because it's bleeding.
Wow.
So it's when I see that, it's like that's the type of stuff that inspires me. That you're so determined to get it right, that you're so determined to do well, and she got back in the saddle. So that to me, there's no difference in that than what I did when I was determined to succeed and do well and progress and do well in missions and to make flight lead and to be a flight instructor, or the same drive and determination I had and still have to do well in my personal life, whether when I was retiring from the military, to find a good job and to take care of my family, and to focus on that new chapter or new book. So when I look at people that are high performers and whatever it is that they do, I don't discriminate at all. If you are absolutely dedicated to being an artist or a musician or a surgeon or a special operator, it's the same to me. It's the same approach is what makes all those people successful.
And that's what I'm interested in the podcast. And those are the type, whether it's yourself or Isaac or Ryan Jasinski in the military, or Reggie Jaggers and Kibwe Johnson and Sean Donnelly in track and field, or all these high level guys, and you find the same mentality through all of them. It's just they've put it into different aspects of life, but it's all that same path.
Yeah.
I was young, I was inspired, I put in the reps, I worked really hard, I just killed myself and busted my ass and got to the point where I was top level, you know. And
there's a sacrifice to it. You sacrifice something to do that. So
yeah, 100%. And that for me, being a 5'11" Highland Games athlete, that's all I had. All I had was reps and repetition and discipline, and I just had to outwork everybody else because I was never going to be 6'4". I was never going to be 350. You know, I never had those long arms. Was never like a Division I track and field athlete. It was, but that's what interests me is the work and the discipline and the path that gets you to these places.
And sometimes that path changes. You know, we talked in the last podcast. I was, you know, of course, young, and you know, you think one thing and the reality catches up to you. You know, I was convinced that, hey, I'm going to go, you know, play collegiate soccer or volleyball in California, and that quickly dissolved.
Sure, yeah.
And I was like, well, you know what, my pathway changed and went down a different path, and that you know, it led me to a much different, you know, very successful career, and, you know, felt accomplished. So, but now it's like, you know, what can I do to not fill that void, because you can never fill a void that big, you know. So for me, it's, you know, being 40 and, you know, trying to, and now having the time to do it is, you know, okay, well, this is going to suck, but, you know, I'm teaching myself how to inline skate so I can ice skate, so maybe I can play hockey someday.
Really?
Yeah, so, yeah, because my daughter, you know, has skates too, and I'm like, well, you know what, I enjoy watching hockey, so I'm like, you know what, it's going to suck.
I was going to say, that sounds scary. I don't want to fall that hard.
Yeah, so got a nice long driveway, so I've spent plenty of time coming into the house. I think I still have a messed up jammed finger from falling, but you know, my daughter will come in. Dad fell again.
Yeah, right.
Just, you know, being 6'4",
It's a long
wreck.
fall.
But put the reps in, and like, you know, went into it knowing, hey, this is gonna suck. It's not gonna be if I fall, it's gonna be when. But I'm like, I'm determined. I want to do something new.
Yep.
So we've got an ice rink near us that hopefully will be opening up soon. So obviously COVID kind of put the brakes on doing the reps in the front yard and then going to the ice rink. So, but I'm determined. I want to do it, and we'll at least try. And
well, then, that's when I got into jiu-jitsu. I wanted a new challenge. I wanted something else different to do, and I went in there and I was horrible. And just got mangled by these guys who were 160 pounds. And I came back and went, okay, I need to get better at this. I can't go in there and just get dominated. So that became a drive that I was just going to do this.
Yeah, that's I think, you know, as I'm getting older too, and you've probably seen this too, is I think you go through multiple periods of reinventing and rediscovering things. I think that's absolutely okay. And I think that, especially with veterans, I think you have to accept that you don't look for what you left, because you'll never find it. It doesn't exist anymore. You left that. And when you retire or separate or get out, you have to have realistic expectations that that camaraderie, that environment that you left, very likely that you won't ever find that again, because that's over. You have to move on. And I think it's healthy to go out and try things. Like for me, the whole, I grew up nowhere near an ice rink. You know, lived off of a dirt road, so there's no way I could have inline skated and transitioned to ice skates. But now I live 3 minutes from, you know, a nice ice rink, and I've got a long driveway, and it's something that my daughter and I can do together. So I'm like, we're gonna do it. I'm like, I don't care, I'm gonna fall, but it's you know, getting over the fear of what others think when you're trying something new.
You know? Embarrassment.
Yeah, because I like to get into rugby too. You know, I grew up playing soccer, so I'm all nice and sore right now from doing hill sprints in my neighborhood. You know, working some of those different muscles you haven't worked in for forever. So
I got to put you together with Matt Damien. He was the assistant rugby coach at University of Toledo. He's been on the show a bunch of times. He'd probably help you out with some stuff.
I'd be up for it, but I think it's, you know, kind of as we're winding this podcast down, I think, you know, for veterans, a piece of advice I could give all day, every day is that don't look for what isn't there anymore, but find other things to get into that are healthy, that give you kind of the same stimulation. And I think you know, going out there and failing over and over and over again until you get it right is okay. And for me, it does kind of hit some of the same you know, spark points in the brain that I had before. That it's something new. It's, you know, something that's challenging, and it's something that you want to, you know, attempt to master. I'd say go out and do it. I want to get into riding horses again too. I grew up on a horse ranch. I want to ride again and jump again. You know, my daughter's trainer knows that. And she's like, you're gonna look like a fool doing it. She's like, but I'll get you there. I'm like, she's like, it's okay if you're older. We'll just do things a different way, a different style. So it's I think it's absolutely healthy to go out and explore because I know it's cliche, but you do only have one life on this planet, so go out and take it all in and enjoy things. And I think that's absolutely healthy. And for me, that's been very therapeutic too, to focus on energy into other things too. And plus, my daughter's into it, and it's a win-win for me.
Yeah.
So I've gotten over the what do others think? I'm okay picking myself up in the driveway, and when people see it, I don't care anymore. I've been through too much at this point.
Well, yeah, and you know how to fail and how to come
Yeah.
back from it. It's failure's not it's not the end
Yeah.
point. It's just the next step.
Yep.
And yeah, that's again goes back to that reps and discipline and figuring stuff out. And once you learn how to be good at one thing, you can be good at everything.
Yeah, get out and experiment, have fun with it. Like I said, don't be afraid to try something new.
100%. Happy Memorial Day.
Likewise, beautiful day up here. So
Do this
enjoy it.
again sometime, and we got to get you in here swinging some kettlebells
Yeah,
and
I know.
stuff.
Got some big stones around here we need to throw around. So
Yeah. Anytime you want. I want to thank you for coming
of course,
out.
man. I'm glad to be out here and appreciate the friendship we have. And it's a great podcast. So happy to be part of your project.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right, this has been the Refined Savage. See ya.